This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. Did a Chinese automaker just beat everyone to the market with a true solid-state battery? IM Motors claims its upcoming sedan, the L6, will have the world's first mass-produced ultra-fast charging solid-state battery. It says the 130 kilowatt-hour battery in the L6 sedan will deliver 1,000 kilometers of range, or 620 miles. And even adjusting that to an estimated EPA range, it still comes to 403 miles. IM Motors says this will be a fast-charging battery thanks to a nanoscale solid electrolyte coating on ultra-high nickel materials for the positive electrode, and the negative electrode gets a new generation of high-energy density composite silicon carbon materials. It will be capable of nearly 900 volts, but it did not say how fast the battery can charge. It will release more technical details on April 8th. And interestingly, it looks like this was developed in-house and not with a major battery supplier. Speaking of fast-charging batteries, CATL's chairman, Robin Zhang, tells Bloomberg that they will start supplying cells to Tesla's battery plant in Nevada. Even though Tesla is starting to make batteries on its own, it's still dependent on its suppliers like CATL, Panasonic, and BYD. China, the US, and the EU have a mandate that EV batteries have to last for 8 years. But other battery experts say that should be bumped up to 15 years. And they want those batteries to retain 85% of their original capacity versus the 70% in today's mandates. J.B. Straubel, who used to work at Tesla and now runs the battery recycling company Redwood, says the life cycle of the typical battery pack is already close to 15 years, and CATL is working on extending its warranty to that time. A study by the company Recurrent, which looks at battery analytics, says the average EV battery only loses 20 miles of range over 8 years, and that outside of big recalls like the one for the Chevrolet Bolt and Hyundai Kona, battery replacements are quite rare. Nissan laid out an ambitious new business plan it calls the ARC. In 3 years, it wants to sell 1 million more vehicles than it did last year. And last year, it sold a little less than 3.4 million vehicles around the world. So it wants to increase its sales by nearly 30% by the end of its 2026 fiscal year. To reach that goal, Nissan says it will launch 30 new models in those 3 years. 16 of them will be electrified, and the other 14 will be ICE. Mostly, these are refreshed versions of current models, but it also includes 7 all-new models for the US and Canada, some of which will feature plug-in hybrid and Nissan's e-Power technology, which uses an IC engine as a generator to charge the battery, just like the system powertrain expert Mickey Bly told us Ram would use on last week's Autoline After Hours. Nissan also plans to increase its operating profit margin to more than 6% by reducing its EV costs. That includes developing EVs in families so they can share parts and components. It says that will slash development costs in half, reduce part variations by 70%, cut development time by 4 months, and trim production time by 20%. In total, Nissan wants its next-gen EVs to cost 30% less than the Ariya. The United States wants to reduce its dependence on China for critical materials needed for EV batteries like lithium, but that effort is getting tied up in red tape. The U.S. is offering generous incentives to expand lithium mining in the U.S., but it's going to take longer than expected. Reuters reports that there's confusion over who owns the lithium that's underground, how it should be valued by regulators, and who should be allowed to process it. That all has to be figured out by states and local officials, and right now they're working at a slow pace.
Intrepid's NeoVi Pi, allowing automotive engineers to interface, capture, and monitor vehicle data using Raspberry Pi. As a matter of fact, it's the automotive industry's first robust platform for Raspberry Pi, featuring Intrepid CAN-FD technology and Raspberry Pi compute module. The NeoVi Pi is designed for automotive environments, allowing use with relative power ranges and applications. In addition, the NeoVi Pi enables you to use the Raspberry Pi for compute while avoiding additional development to adapt to network environments. That makes the NeoVi Pi powerful enough to solve your vehicle network problems, yet small enough to fit in your backpack. One of many Intrepid tools used for developing zonal architecture and software-defined vehicles.
Chinese EV maker Xpeng continues to make progress with VTOLs, or vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. The Chinese government just awarded its land carrier flying car with an airworthiness certificate. The land carrier is a 6-wheeled vehicle with a small aircraft tucked into the back compartment. The sides of the vehicle fold down to deploy the VTOL. The aircraft can seat 2 people, while the carrier has room for 4 to 5. The vehicle's set of wheels are attached to their own e-axle, and the aircraft is fully electric, meant to be flown at low altitudes either manually or autonomously. Stellantis laid off 400 engineering, technology, and software workers in the U.S. on Friday. Stellantis blamed the cuts on, quote, unprecedented uncertainties and heightened competitive pressures around the world. The layoffs are effective March 31st. And Autoline learned that there was no warning about the cuts and people were shocked. A source also tells Automotive News that more cuts are coming and that Stellantis will be doing this in waves to, quote, game the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification, or WARN Act. The law requires a 60-day advance public disclosure whenever a company lays off at least 500 workers within a 30-day period. So, by firing 400 people at a time, it appears that Stellantis is working around the law. Transitioning to electric cars comes with a massive R&D and capital investment bill for legacy automakers, and so they're looking for every opportunity they can to cut costs. At Honda, that includes dealer profit margins. Automotive News reports that Honda is going to cut its U.S. dealer margins by 0.5%, but that's nothing compared to what it wants to do in Canada, where it told dealers it will cut their margins by 44%. But the Canadian dealers promised to fight that in court. Honda is also going to cut free routine maintenance for U.S. customers from 2 years down to 1, and we wonder if we could see similar actions from other automakers. No doubt New Zealander Bruce McLaren never saw something like this coming when he formed McLaren Racing in 1965. The McLaren Group is now under full control of Bahrain's sovereign wealth fund. The company says the reorganization will allow it to form new partnerships to help McLaren gain access to develop electric vehicles. The McLaren Group has struggled since the COVID pandemic. It lost $186 million in the third quarter of last year, which forced it to raise $566 million from shareholders to help with its finances. McLaren will report its full 2023 results next month. Every year, Jeep creates a number of unique concepts for the Easter Jeep Safari. I'll show you the one I like the most, but if you want to see more, we'll provide the link. This is the Vacationeer, or what I think is the off-road version of the Wagoneer that everyone would want. It has the high-output 510 horsepower version of the Hurricane engine, a suspension lift kit, 35-inch tires, and a carbon fiber roof-mounted tent with solar panels. Designers gave it a 2-tone paint job and even a little nod to wood body panels. But that brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks for making Autoline a part of your day.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, solutions for your journey, and by Intrepid Control Systems, over-the-air engineering. Boost your game.
Keeping your heart racing in and out of the gym. That's what really matters. Bridgestone Potenza Sport AS tires with a 50,000-mile limited warranty.